Hi, Kev here from the Mindmasters Mindset and Mental Health podcast. We are back with another episode of the podcast, and I am so excited about this one. This is a long time in the making. This young man that we've got on is going to bring a powerful, impactful story that I know is going to make a massive difference to a lot of people, and I know even more are going to love hearing. So welcome to Harvey. Thanks for joining me and coming on to sort of share your story with me.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you very much for having me on, Kev.
Yep. How are we doing?
Yeah, very well. Not bad at all. How are you?
Yeah, good. Just planning on getting this conversation right and making sure that we get the right message out there, because we've got so much packed that we need to talk about. Certainly in the time I've got to know you, there is never a dull moment in your life, and I think we've got a lot to cover in a short space of time.
For sure. I'm excited for it. It's going to be good.
Yeah. So where do we start? I've ran this through my head 100 times over. Where's a good place to start? And I guess a good place to start is what first brought you to my attention. So I became aware of you as this young lad, wet behind the ears. You were you still are, a young prodigy of my younger brother, Scott Brown Fitness. You burst onto the scene as this incredible young athlete that was, so highly regarded at a really, really young age. I suddenly saw you in the SBF colours, and you're out there doing these crazy OCRs and stuff. Yeah, that's probably a good place to start. But I think your athletic sort of accolades and background probably goes right back, doesn't it?
I suppose so, yeah. I mean, I started like my athletic kind of career started like a lot of young boys in Scotland playing football.
Yep.
That was the first thing that I started my journey with. So played with Rolls Royce and Claremont growing up, just local boys clubs teams, and that was kind of how I started getting into my fitness, and then met Scott when I was 15, started training with him, and then since then I kind of moved on to other things and followed a different path.
And to say you've been just a little bit successful would be kind of probably putting it mildly. So let's start, before we get into the deeper stuff, let's start by filling your cup up. So you've won a few titles along the way, just in the journey, certainly as an SBF athlete, you've travelled around the world, you've done some amazing things. You tell us some of the stuff that you've done.
So I'm a 2-time age group world champion in obstacle course racing. So I won the Spartan World Championship in Abu Dhabi when I was 16. And then recently this year, I won the World's Toughest Mudder for my age group. So that was a 24-hour obstacle course race. And I'm Scotland's youngest Ironman athlete. So that was a 3.8k swim, 180km bike and a marathon. And I'm also a Guinness World Record holder for winning the world's highest ever trail half marathon race down Mount Kilimanjaro. So they're probably my favourite accolades so far. Yeah,
I was pretty jealous of that last one. Kilimanjaro is like bucket list item, and you just decided, well, I'll just go and run it. Never mind hike it. So yeah. I'll take that bucket list and I'll raise it a level.
Yeah, that was good fun.
So you've won a few things, and I think also fair to say for a huge periods of your life, you've been pretty successful, a lot of high expectations on you.
For sure.
Grade A student, doing well in the athletic side of things, probably brought a lot of expectations, a lot of maybe elements of pressure as you've been coming through at your young age.
Definitely, I would agree with that. Even and my mum's a head teacher, so even things like school, there was pressure there to make sure I was like do well in school, and then athletic pressure as well. Once you start kind of winning races and doing things, you feel that pressure when you turn up to races, that there's eyes on you, people have expectations, people are expecting results, and I always think that pressure is a privilege, but you need to be able to manage that.
It's a good framing. I like that. So how as you started to kind of notice, well, I'm pretty good at this, I'm pretty good at that, given that you're in your late teen years, How did you manage that? What was your sort of ways of coping?
I suppose the way I kind of cope with pressure was I've always kind of had like a reasonably good mindset towards it and good attitude towards dealing with pressure, but I almost kind of probably come to a bit of a shock, but I didn't believe in myself that much, so I was kind of naive to that pressure, and I was think, "Oh, maybe I'm not as good as what other people are thinking," so I didn't kind of let it get to me as much. So that was almost my way of sort of dealing with it.
Mm-hmm. Did you Were you aware of the expectations that came from those closest to you, like your parents and coach and different things like that? Were you aware of that, and it's sort of adding to maybe what you're describing as, I never really felt, despite what people thought, I never really believed in myself too much.
Yeah,
But
definitely.
were you aware of everyone else going, well, you've got to do this, you've got to win this, you've got to enter this, you've got to go for this?
Yeah, I would probably say I was kind of aware of it, but sometimes, like I said, I was kind of naive to it, so I was thinking as though maybe I'm not as good as what all these other people think I am.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the way I kind of looked at it.
Mm-hmm. So let's rewind it back a bit. What was for people that's maybe listening and going, right, okay, I'm starting to get a bit of an idea who this guy is. What tell us a little bit about the younger Harvey. Where did you grow up? What was your story? What was a bit of the background?
So I grew up in East Kilbride, not far away from Glasgow. I kind of grew up, as I said, playing football. A lot of my time was spent outdoors from a young age. Just loved being outdoors. Loved like playing with my pals, kicking a ball about. I would always be out. That's what I would be doing, kicking a ball about. And then got to high school, and then from a young age fell into the kind of wrong crowd, as a lot of people do. Started drinking, started going out, started doing that kind of stuff, and that was kind of where around probably started drinking from about 14, 15 years old, like obviously illegally, and like park bevies and that, like what people kind of do in Scotland. It's a cultural thing, like there's a lot of people do it. So yeah, that was kind of a younger version of me.
And I guess what you're describing there is just another set of expectations.
Yeah.
Another set of expectations. One, you've got to be the athlete. One, you've got to be the student. One, you've got to be the son. And one, you've now got to be the friend that fits in.
Exactly that.
It's an awful lot to balance at a young age.
It's a lot to balance.
Because
Very
I guess
difficult.
For a lot of young people, if they're not doing so well at school, or they're not really athletically driven, then the drinking or the drugs or whatever it is they're doing, or crime, it can be just almost written off a little bit. Oh, well, that's just more acceptable. Whereas for you, you're trying to do it all. You're trying to fit into everything.
Pretty much. I've always kind of had that issue. I've always been trying to do it all, doing everything, and sometimes you just can't. It's not possible to do that.
Mm-hmm. So, young lad, growing up in East Kilbride, you're starting to spin a lot of plates.
That is very well put. Yeah.
Starting to spin a lot of plates. You've managed to keep your fitness going, which is probably hiding a lot of stuff. Because fitness is a good mask. For whatever else we get up to. You are doing well at school
at the time,
college. What's your aspirations at that point? What's your career path that you're looking to do at that moment?
So when my childhood dream was to eventually, I wanted to go in the Marines, and I wanted to be and after that then go into either the SAS or the SBS. That was always my plan. I always wanted to do. I always loved reading books about the army and like warfare and stuff like that. And it was just something that I looked up to those people and thought, that's amazing and I always loved all the tests that they had to go through, and just found it fascinating that and that's what I wanted to do since I was about 13. And then so fourth year came around, and then I was Nat 5s and then hires, and then I was wanted to join up, but I was maybe I should go and try and join as an officer. So I was I could join a bit older. So I wanted to go to uni first, and then I was right, well, I'm not really. I was all right at school, but I wasn't. It was never enjoyable for me. I never loved school. I never loved studying. I never really enjoyed all that. So I was thinking what do I love doing? Love my fitness. Love my exercise. So I'm going to do something that I love doing, and that's definitely if it was any bit of advice, do what you love and love what you do. So I'm now in uni studying sport and exercise science. So that's my degree. I'm going into my third year. And then my plan was to go into the Marines after university as an officer. However, that's now kind of came to an end almost, my dream.
So we'll come back to that. So you've got a bit of an idea where you want to go, what you want to do.
Yeah.
You're getting more heavily involved in sports, endurance sports, different things like that. You've got a buzz for that as well. Your current sort of friend group and stuff, you're getting involved in a bit of endurance sports out with the friend group as well. You're getting involved in some of the things that's putting you maybe on the back foot a little bit. What about home life? What was the situation there at home life then, round about this moment when all this is going on?
So in terms of home life, I was staying with my mum and my stepdad. So my parents are divorced, and my dad, he works away. He works offshore, so he'll work long stints away. Probably from like used to do 6 weeks on, 6 weeks off, but then it became like 4 or 5 months on, and he would only come home for a couple of weeks. So wouldn't really see much of him. So a majority of like my high school years were spent with my mum and my stepdad. So my home life was quite good. Like loving family, was brought up really well. Like, so that was good. My home life was good.
Okay, so we're perfectly teed up. Everything's going on the surface really well.
Yep.
Life is good. Harvey is heading towards that dream, if you like. So where does things start to take a turn?
So I suppose you could say things started to take a turn. Really, I mean, around must be about 2023. I think things started to take the summer of 2023. Things started to take a turn for me. So I just completed the Ironman in the June. Then I was like, okay, I've trained really hard for this 6 months, like relentlessly training for it. But at the same time, I say that, but at the same time, I was out partying and I was out like drinking, taking drugs, and I wasn't fully focused in on it. But I was like, it was a big achievement, so I was like, I'll take a couple months off after that, and then I can reassess the situation after. So I spent that month, that summer, partying, like going out, drinking, taking drugs, like excessively, and then things really started to take a turn when I came back home from Greenfields in 2023. That was like the turning point for me, where like my life had like drastically changed, like for the foreseeable, for the rest of it.
So you've come back for Creamfields. I take it you've absolutely burnt the candle both ends.
Yep.
And you've come back in a pretty bad way.
I was in a pretty bad nick. Yeah.
Yep. Do you remember much about that moment, that little spot there?
I mean, yeah, I do. I remember. I can recall like I can recall all of it really. To be fair.
So what happened? Talk us through it. You've come back home. You back to mum, dad's. What's went on?
Yeah. So, Greenfields was the end of August. So I was actually there was like I had went to a rave down in Manchester at the start of August. Totally like ripped the arse out of it there.
Yep.
And then was like went to Greenfields again, done the same thing. Like I was excessively taking drugs all weekend. Like Greenfields is a major shift. Like it's brutal. You're waking up. That's what the first thing you're doing. There's not much else to do. You just wake up and you're just bang right on it, like for 4 or 5 days in a row. And it was like, yeah, it was pretty heavy going. So I remember coming home from that on the Monday, and then I was back to work on the Tuesday. So I was meant to start at 6, and I got asked to come in earlier, about 3 o'clock. So I came into work and I was just like all over the place. I couldn't think straight. I was like on a come down, like felt terrible. Like that whole weekend just totally took it out of me. And then I was like thinking like they were like in the shop. Like I was working in a pizza shop. I was a pizza chef. I was thinking that I was reading all the checks wrong and I was making all the wrong stuff and I was like excessively making errors and I just was like all over the place, and my manager was like, "Are you okay?" and stuff, and I was like, I'm alright, but I was just like literally a total mess. And then I got sent up the road like from that shift, and then came in the next day, still the same. Like I was like, I had such brain fog, like couldn't think straight. Like it was just terrible. It was a horrible feeling. But at the time, and then I had a bit of a falling out with my manager at the time. and then ended up letting go from that job because of like the way I spoke to him and things like that. So ended up getting sacked. So that was like, this is adding on to the come down of me being back. I've now lost my job. I was in like, but at the time I wasn't aware of this. I was just thinking that it was like, I was like blaming the come down, but I was like so for sure that it wasn't me that was in the wrong. And I was like, right, I was like just thinking, no, it's fine, it'll be fine, and it wasn't. I was like totally, it totally affected me that weekend really. So I'd now lost my job. Was trying to apply for different places, was really stressed out, was like financially like a wee bit in the shit. So I was like, this isn't good. And then that was like, from then on, started to just decline and spiral. And I remember applying for jobs, and like I was like a cleaning job in the local swimming centre. I like couldn't get it. And then I had this was going back to the Marines thing. I had an allergic reaction because I used to have a nut allergy, and I thought I'd grown out of it. And then that flared up. So this was another thing. I was like, because you can't join the Marines if you've got an allergy. So I was thinking, oh no, this is another childhood dream. Went down the drain. And at this point, there was just a number of things that just a run of like bad luck almost, but it was self-inflicted. So at this point, it was just one thing after another. I lost my job, then the allergy. I'm like, Christ, my childhood dreams down the drain. Can't get a job, struggling. It was like just a loads of small things, but they just accumulated to then me being in a really like bad place, to be fair.
And what was everyone round about you's understanding at that point? So you know in your head what's going on. You're running away from that a little bit because you're blaming the world.
Yeah,
it's everyone else's fault. It's everything else's fault. But what was the world's take on it? So the people that care about you and the closest to you, what did they believe? Did they believe that, you know, that what did they believe at that point? Because they can just see that things ain't going so well, and you're a bit down or you're a bit low.
Yeah, I mean, I think because my mum and my family and everybody around me, they never knew I was out taking drugs. They didn't know that. No, like a lot of people like didn't know that side of me. Like my family anyway. Yep. So they were like thinking, oh, there's like when I told my mum I got sacked, she was like, what do you mean you got sacked? She was like, are you joking? You like she was just never expect that. And she was like, and then I kind of was, because I was blaming the world and blaming everybody else, she was trying to get on my side that it wasn't my fault. And she was like thinking, and I was like, because obviously I knew it in myself that I'd been taking drugs and partying all weekend and stuff like that, and that had an impact. But my mum was none the wiser. She had no idea. So when I told her that, she was like kind of blown away about it. She didn't know how to react, but she was just trying to get on my side, as like any mum would do. Yeah. So that was kind of how they viewed this side of the story. How
far did you leave it before? How far gone was it before your mum and dad learned that, right, actually he's been taking loads of drugs? And
yeah, so they didn't know until I was like hospitalised.
So this comes later.
Yeah.
So right up till that point, they believe that there's got to be a reason why you feel the way you feel, why you're acting the way you're acting. You know, I remember an early conversation actually with your dad, and I remember him, you know, he was like, it's stress, it must be stress, and it's, you know, something along that kind of line.
Yeah.
But there was clearly no insight as to what the reality was for you.
Exactly.
So did you, what did that feel like? Because you're obviously, well, like, are you still at this point, are you still finding ways to get hold of drugs?
I mean, I was like,
or
I wasn't, I just thought, so my like plan was to, it was a plan, but it was like, do Ironman, enjoy my summer, like, then Creamfields, I was just like completely scunnered with taking stuff. Right. I was like, that's me. I was like, I ripped arse the whole summer, and I was like, I'm not doing this again. I was like, I get fed up with it. I was like, it's not. I was like, I come down and working that. I was like, I'm never touching a drug again. So Creamfields 2023 was supposed to be the last time
Right.
that I ever touched a drug. So I wasn't going out. I mean, I say I was going out every weekend and dabbling and taking drugs and stuff, but then I kind of cut down a wee bit, and it was just at raves. So I would like, go to raves, and that's when I was taking all the drugs that I was doing. It wasn't like I was in like in the pub or like sniffing or in gaffs, stuff like that. It was like it was around music and around raves. That was where I was taking all the drugs I was taking.
But the reality is you had to learn your lesson.
No.
So the pain wasn't big enough yet. You know, they talk about you'll have heard that expression, when the pain of staying the same outweighs the pain of making the change, that's when you finally make the change. You at that point, despite all that pain, it still hadn't reached a point where it was enough for you to stop.
No.
So you're still dabbling, you're still, as you say, maybe if it's a night out or something, and you're still struggling.
Yeah.
Did you notice that the come downs were getting harder to deal with?
Definitely.
Throughout that period?
100%. Like, especially after the Creamfields one, that was like that come down was horrible. Really.
And
bad.
you know something? I think that's probably a good thing to build on, because I think society, maybe for people that experience that, they'll relate massively to this part of the conversation. But for people who are living with someone that's struggling with that, this will start to make a lot of sense. What does that look like for a young guy that's been out of the weekend? He's went down a road where he's putting chemicals into his body, and the party's over, he's back home, and then the next few days, what did that look like for you?
So for me, it was more, it's the thoughts that come into your head when you're on that come down and you're by yourself. You're like, you feel terrible. You're having terrible thoughts. You're just, it's genuinely like, that's a horrible thing to experience. Like, any come down is not nice at all. And it's difficult to explain it unless you've had one, unless you've been in that situation. It's like, it is really brutal.
How long would they last?
Sometimes like a day or two, and sometimes like it could last up to like a week for me. Like, when I came back for Creamfields, it was like a week long.
And what kind of thoughts were you left with in those days where you would be on your own?
You're just like, you question your whole existence almost. You're just like, what's the point in being here and things like that. Like, that's the extent to how bad they can get.
Yep.
And a lot of people probably, they come down as like were probably quite mild compared to some people like I know have had like really, really bad come downs, and they struggle to deal with them.
Mm-hmm. Do you think, and again, we've still got so much where we're going to go, what comes next, but do you think it was these moments of suffering, come down, whatever you want to call it, that they were almost sort of breaking you down piece by piece?
Definitely.
And you weren't even aware of it at that point. Your I guess the word I'm looking for is maybe your resilience. We were taking brick upon brick away from your wall.
Yeah.
That was leaving you wide open.
Spot on. That's exactly how I would put it.
But at the time, you know, again, I've shared in previous episodes, I've also suffered that same path and that same place. At the time, you don't see it. No. You're trying to run away from things at the time. Maybe, certainly, that's what I think I was doing. You're trying to run away or block things out, maybe part of your life out or whatever, by doing it. But then the bit that comes next, what you described really well, is it's really, really hard to put into words.
Yes.
Because it's almost like it's like you've got sadness, and then there's a layer that's underneath, and that's the layer.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Mm-hmm. What do you think about that, what I've just said about the whole, like, see, looking back, why do you think you were self-destructing like this? Why do you think you were knowing what would come next? What was if you think back now and go, well, why was I taking all that stuff? Why was I getting myself so, what was it giving you, do you think, at the time?
I always remember, actually, my mum asking me, because she was always so confused as to why I was ever taking drugs in the first place. And I remember her asking me, like, why, what was the need for you to be taking them? Like, why were you? And it took me ages to come up with an answer for it. And I just kind of remember, like, it was never, for a lot of people, drugs can be an escape from reality, and they're running away from how they feel and whatever. But for me, it never was that. I wasn't escaping anything. It was because I felt like I had a good life. I was like training hard. I was like studying. I was doing well in school and all these things. So it was almost an addition. If like it was as though I was going to these raves and it was like, oh, I'll take this stuff because it's going to enhance my experience at the rave. That was the only way. That was the only thing I could think of that was why I was taking these drugs, was because it was just going to make my experience a bit better at the rave. That was the sole reason that I dabbled in all the drugs and took it. And I remember going and taking ecstasy for the first time, and it was like this euphoric feeling. And I remember trying to chase that first time, and it's never the same.
Do you think, I'm listening to you talking there and I'm sort of digesting that, do you think that sort of that feeling that's does that feed into the way that you sort of live your life? Like you're chasing that high, you're all you know, you're like looking in on the Harvey show, you would think he's chasing that buzz, that vibe, that euphoric, you know, the winning the race, the traveling to an unbelievable country, the doing something that no other young person can do. Does drugs have a similar? Does it maybe served a similar purpose?
Maybe, yeah.
In some ways, I don't know.
Yeah, I suppose I kind of swapped one high for another. It was as though I was swapping the high of winning races and stuff, that you need to work so hard for that, and you need to put in so much like training and so much effort
For this cheat code.
for a cheat code, that you go out at the weekend and you take an Eckie, and that's you get this, you think it's the same feeling, but it's not. It's entirely different.
Yep, and it's a heavier price to pay.
Much heavier.
Because everything has a cost, doesn't it? Like, and this, I guess this is the thing that some people are absolutely going to be, as they're listening to this, you know, wherever they are, they're going to be going, yeah, but the cost is the what Harvey's been having to pay and what he's still paying today. You know, it's a cheat code. It's giving you that, for some people, an escape. It's giving you, for some people, it dulls an emotion that maybe they've been carrying. Also, for some people, it just enhances the moment, like you described.
Yeah.
But there's a cost.
A big cost.
The input is the drug. The output is not just the euphoric moment. It's all the part that comes next. And it's all the part that come next that probably led to probably the most traumatic moment of your life.
Yep. Traumatic experience.
Yep. So let's go there. So we've had a real heavy one after Creamfields. We've managed to kind of cover it up a little bit with our family. We're managing to sort of continue on the path. You're probably still studying, you're still doing sports, you're still doing the different things that keeps people off the trail.
Right.
Yeah, off the trail. There's nothing wrong, nothing to see here. He's getting a hard time now as our Harvey and all that good stuff. But the reality is, you're still out there making some choices it's continuing this, what is this sort of describing, it's breaking you down piece by piece. So what comes next?
So the next bit for me was probably around, confused, August, probably about November time. Well, in fact, before that, this was when my mum started to getting a bit worried about me. I was supposed to do a presentation at my mum's school talking about all things resilience, That was what the presentation was on.
Wow.
So I was supposed to do that, and this was when I was like really down and really low, and I remember just not doing any of the work. Like I was supposed to do all these slides and make up a big PowerPoint and go into like a school full of children and give a presentation on resilience. And I remember not doing any of it. And it was supposed to be on the Monday, and it was like Sunday night. I remember my mum coming in and like, oh, let's see your presentation. Hadn't done any of it. And I just remember like totally like breaking down, like was crying my eyes out like in front of my mum. I hadn't done that since I was a wee boy. And I kind of broke down a bit then, and my mum was like, right, something's definitely up with him. So I felt, and I managed to pull myself together, and I got the presentation ready, and I delivered the presentation. And I just remember feeling like a complete fraud. I mean, like, how can I give this presentation after doing all these things? At that time, my mum still didn't know about the drugs I was taking and stuff like that, and that was a heavy one. And then the next bit was around November, so things got progressively worse and worse, and I started to feel more and more down, and then I started to get all these like voices in my head that I couldn't really like escape, and I was I remember trying to get out the door to go to uni, and I was like and I've never had anxiety, never been an anxious person, always been like reasonably confident, stuff like that, and I just started getting this anxiety like all the time. Like I couldn't go out to the door to go to uni. I was I remember being outside Morrison's trying to go in and hand my CV in, couldn't get out of the car. I remember not going out on nights out with my pals because I was too anxious, I was too worried, I was too scared. And then it was about November, I was like, I just kept getting these really bad headaches and things like that. And I remember like not going into uni, I wasn't training, I wasn't going to the gym, and then I took a sort of seizure. And I was in the house, and my mum had just come home from work, and I was just like, I remember it like clear as day, phoning the ambulance, and no, the phone the like 111, and remember driving to the hospital, like kind of just dazing in and out in the back of the car, and then going into A&E, and like it was as if a switch had flipped in me, and I was like possessed almost. It was like my behaviour was out of control. I was out of character. The way I was like speaking to people, I was like volatile. This was like I was like my mum was like I was apologising to all the staff because it was like this isn't my son. Like she didn't know what was going on. She was like, I don't know what's happened, and I like just almost lost control of like my mind almost. That was what had happened. And I remember being in A&E, had like I think it was in my arm, ripped it out, was in this wee cubicle, and I was just in my shorts, and it was November, it was Baltic, had my gown on, was out in the middle of A&E, like, I want to speak to your boss, shouting at all the staff and all that. And then they were like, I'm not phoning my boss at 6 o'clock in the morning, like we're not doing that. And then I was like, right, fine then, took my gown off, and it was up at Hairmyres, ran all the way down to Lidl, no shoes on, no socks on, was at the bottom of the roundabout at Lidl, and the police car came after me. My stepdad ran after me, lent me shoes, and I was like, ran away from him. Then they had to like detain me, put me back in the police car, drove me back up to A&E, tried to calm me down, had to like give me medication to calm me down. I was like adamant that I did not need to be there. Once I was okay, I was like, I don't need to be here anymore. I was like, I'm fine. And that was me. I was like set on getting out of there. So then for the next, I spent about 10 days in hospital. They done every like check they could have. I went for an MRI. They checked like from all my brain. They took all my blood. They like everything that they could have checked for. They were
At this point, they believe there is seizure related, brain potentially related.
Yeah.
I remember the conversations at the time. They believe it's a physical thing
Yeah.
that's happened in your head. That's what's led to the seizure. That's what's leading to the behaviour.
Yeah, so that was what they thought. They thought it was going to be something like that. So they then, because of the fact I ran away, I was like under 24 like hour supervision. So it was just my mum and my dad that were just like doing rounds. They were just like doing shifts, like looking after me. I always remember it was like, and at this point the voices are still going on, like, and I'm like linking things, and I'm just like, I was just so like, my brain would just not shut off. It was like 100 million miles an hour all day long, like all the time. I remember my dad would come in and see me, and I was like, every time he came in, I would try and steal his shoes off him and run away. Because I was like, I just kept remember having the conversation. I was like, I don't need to be in here anymore. I was like, there's nothing wrong with me. I was like, I was adamant that I was fine. And then they were like, oh, it's like, it could be the mental health. And then it was like this mental health act, and it was a big, massive, like the fact that I was sectioned, or not sectioned at that point, but I was like detained under the mental health act. And I was like, that's a load of rubbish. I was like, there's nothing wrong with my mental health. I was like, I'm fine. I don't need to be here. Let me out. I was like, there's people that need to be in like the hospital bed more than I do. I was like, I'm taking up a room here. I was like, just let me out. So every time my dad came in, I was trying to steal his shoes, and I was wrestling with him and that, because it was like as though he bought the shoes off Scott, and I knew that, and I was like, right, that's a sign. I was like, Scott's telling me I need to get out here. So I was like, I'm going to need to steal his shoes and run away. And I remember we went out one time. They were like, oh, can you go and get some fresh air? Again, tried to run away. I was like, I remember getting wheeled back in this chair, and there was like 3 nurses all like pinning me to this chair to get me in, and I was like, oh no. So this was the first stint in the hospital in Myers. So I was there for 10 days, and basically they put it down to acute stress syndrome. So again, at this point, still the first couple of days diverting away from the fact that I'd been taking a substantial amount of drugs, and it was they were like going through my whole life story, like what had happened, and they were like, this sounds mad. They were like, it's crazy. And then my dad was like, they were saying, no, it can't be the drugs, it won't be the drugs. And then I remember they were asking, like, kind of like a few days in, they were like, right, well, has he taken any drugs? And I remember having to like admit it at that point. And I remember him gutted, like my mum and my stepdad, and like they kind of were about that. But yeah, it was quite a tough thing to see. It was like almost being disappointed in you. Nobody wants to see that. Like, but they were then trying to. They basically put it down to acute stress syndrome. So they said, they were like, well, I wasn't on any medication at this point, and they were like, well, I got discharged, and they were like, right, we'll see how things get on. And then I was discharged from the hospital after 10 days. And then, like, tried to go back to normal life. Just couldn't do it. Like, couldn't go back to. I just couldn't get over the fact. I was like, who in the right mind would want to run away from a hospital? And I just couldn't go over this. Couldn't go over the fact that I was trying to run away from. I was like, my behaviour was so out of character, and it just wasn't me. Like, the only way I can describe it as being possessed. That's what it felt like. It was as though it was someone else that was acting, and it wasn't me. So yeah, I was discharged, and then over Christmas, this was where I seen more of my actual mental health deteriorating.
Yeah.
And this is probably when we started having like sessions and stuff like that to try and get to the bottom of what was up.
So you're back, you've had a stint.
Yeah.
All hell's broke loose and up there, but you've came back home. There's probably still little bits of information started to creep out. Yeah. You have done things or whatever, but there's still a bit of a thinking that this is stress and stuff like that. So yeah, where are you living at this point, and how do things start to deteriorate further?
So I think at this point my dad was still home, so because he was home. Usually when he comes home, I stay there. So I was living with my dad, and at this point he was doing the house up. So we had like a major flood in the house, and like the whole half of the house was like flooded, and it was lying empty for probably about a year or 8 months, and my dad had just came home and he was renovating, so I was kind of living in the house that was like a bit of a bomb site at the time, and he was trying to do it all up, and I was staying there, so it was a bit hectic, and then I just remember like over Christmas and stuff, and the anxiety was still there, and I wasn't able to, like, at Boxing Day, or I think it was my mum's 50th birthday party, and I remember I think it took me about half an hour to tie my shoes. Like, I was just like couldn't like physically get out the door again to go round to my grandma and papa's to see all my family, and I was just so anxious, and they were all just so worried about me, and still like kind of confused as to what had really happened. Like, it was this 10-day spell, and everybody was just like I was trying to get over it, and I just couldn't. And I remember like coming down and visiting you, and we had chats, and that helped me so much through that. And then, like I said, over Christmas, it was like mental health that really took a hit, and I was struggling like more with like kind of depression towards that kind of way. Before it was like anxiety and things, but I was like really down about this whole thing. I was like, I don't know how I'm gonna like get on, but I felt as though it was just such a big thing. Like, I didn't know how I was going to deal with it. I didn't know how I was going to get on with my life. I didn't know how I was going to like be normal at it. I was like, this is like not something that happens to everybody. That's not a normal thing. And then I was just so caught up in it. I just didn't know how to deal with it. I didn't deal with it well at all. So, and there was still question marks left as to why it happened at this point.
Okay, so what comes next?
So after that, we were around like December, and all through this, there's still voices. There's still in my head. Just my brain's just like going all the time. My sleep's like felt like I was hardly sleeping.
Multiple voices, one voice.
Yeah, like multiple voices.
Multiple
like
voices
at the same time, and
positive,
like
negative, about you or about the world around you.
About the world around me and what's going on, and like things that are happening, and it would just be like the most random of thoughts that would come into your head, but I couldn't control them. I couldn't be like, that's weird thought. Get rid of that. I was like, why is that? Like, I thought there was this whole like war going on, and like I think a lot of, maybe because the books and stuff I read when I was younger and things like that, a lot of like your, maybe because I remember the doctors saying a lot of like how your life's been lived, and a lot of the things you like take in, those thoughts will come from that. So I remember thinking there was this huge massive war going on, like between Scotland and England, that nobody knew about except for me. So it was like there was like all these this new Scottish Wars of Independence, and like Scotland wanted to be independent again, and like
you were just living this, and
I was just
thing
living this fantasy thing that this was happening, and it was just like constant. And then I thought, because obviously the Russia and Ukraine war and stuff was going on like that, and it was just all this like conflict and stuff, and it was like conflict in my head, and then even things like, it would just be like, it just get so caught up in it, and I was like thinking about territory and all these like, then every time I came down to Irvine, I was like, oh no, I'm going down this, like it's going to be like the England sector. I was like, and then all my pals, I would go up to see my pal in Stirling, I was like, oh, he's in the Scotland side. I was like, oh, and then I was thinking, I was nuts, man. Like the thoughts I was getting were just like crazy, but I just couldn't decipher them. I couldn't think. I just held on to them, and I couldn't just be like, oh look, that's weird.
You also can't say this stuff out loud.
No,
because who are you going to say this to?
I know, because people will be like, are you mad?
Yeah.
So it was all internalized, that all these thoughts and all these random, like this random World War III that was going on in my head was just all in me. So that's like that's a lot to
does that take us on? That takes us through the Christmas New Year period. Yeah, because you were supposed to come on a programme that I was doing, And I'll never forget some of the random message that you sent at that point. And I went, oh, right, he's deep in this.
Yeah, mate. I was like deep in it. So there was like, this made up World War III going on in my head, and I was the only one that knew about it. So I was the only one that could solve it. So I was like, pressure's like on me. So you need to save the world and all that. I was like, it was nuts. But you, like you said, you can't really, who are you going to talk to this about?
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's proper psychosis.
Exactly.
That world, that reality is not going to land in the outside world of your head.
No,
it's not going to land.
No.
Who's going to want to sit and have that conversation? They're up and they're going to walk away. They're going to leave.
Exactly, mate. It was that was kind of over that period, and then January time, things just kind of got progressively worse. I wasn't going to uni. I was like patching uni. I was patching like my training, like put on a bit of weight over like Christmas period.
Are you still seeing friends at this point? And second question, are you taking anything at this point?
So would have been, I was still seeing I wasn't really seeing much of my pals, but I was kind of at this point I've seen like my close pals, and I wasn't like going out. I seen like my good few pals. Kind of, I remember going a drive with like my three best mates and explaining what happened in the hospital to them.
Yep.
And it was like probably the day or two after it all happened and the way I deal with things is like humour, laughter. And I was telling them about it all, and I was telling them like all my experiences, I was making a big laugh and a joke of it. Because that was the only way I knew to deal with it. I was like, I can't like have all this happen to me and not tell my pals and not. So it was like kind of just told them, and they were just like, what? they were just like buckled with me. They were like, but they didn't understand the seriousness of it at that point either. So that was that time, and then we were into it was New Year, so I was like, I wasn't really, Cream Pools was been the last time like I took any drugs and stuff, and it came in New Year, and I was like, right, I'm done with the Ket and Heckies and all that. I was like, right, and then we were like, it was New Year, I was at Gaff, and it was like these built like the balloons, like nitrous oxide. I was like, right, maybe I'll dabble in them. So if I'm not doing anything else, they can't be that bad, so I'll try that. So I was like, that was like my...
Suddenly everything's forgotten.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, how bad could this be?
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, let's try this.
Let's try that. I know. So that was sort of a daft thing to do. Definitely. It wasn't a good idea at all. So that, and then I remember...
Did the shit hit the fan straight after that?
It was kind of already hit the fan, to be fair. Like I was already having all these mad voices and stuff, but that it definitely didn't help. It didn't add to my recovery. It wasn't helping me at all. So, and then I remember having to admit that to my mum and my dad and stuff, because I felt so bad about it. They were like, "Did you take any? Have you been taking anything?" And I was like, "Well, yeah, I've took these," and they were like, and then that was the whole thing again. And I was just like, it was as if I just let myself down like again and again and again. So yeah, it wasn't in a good place at this point, and then things got like pretty bad towards the end of January. The voices got like louder and progressively worse, and just telling you to do, like, I remember thinking there was like I remember trying to get to sleep, and the voices were like, I was just convinced that everything they were telling me, and I was like, they were saying, "Oh, there's a bomb in your house. Like somebody's like bombed your house, so you need to get out. You need to get out." And I remember jumping out onto the like I stayed in the second floor and going out the window, and like I've got like it was like just like a slant, and like jumping off into the neighbour's garden, and I've still got a scar, and I scraped myself all down the rough casting, and was in the garden. In the neighbour's garden again, just like in my shorts, and my dad coming out into the garden screaming, Harvey, where are you? He just sees my head pop up over. I'm climbing into the neighbour's garden. He has to drive round and because it was like on the back of the other street, and this guy came out and he was like, "You're right, mate," and I was like, I just thought we'd been nuked. I thought Scotland had been nuked, so I was like, this doesn't really matter, mate. I was like,
Your head's gone.
I was like, my head was away with it. So my dad came in, got me. I'd cut all my feet open, I was like, all my side was cut open, and I remember him bringing me back round, and he was just like, he just didn't. I just feel so bad. Like he just didn't know what to do.
Mm-hmm.
He was like, and I was trying to explain this to him. Like, in fact, I wasn't even trying to explain the story because I just knew, like, it was just bonkers. I couldn't even put it into words what was happening. So that had happened, and then I was supposed to be doing. I think this was before that actually. I was supposed to be doing McTuff, like an obstacle course race. And I remember like my headspace was like, I was adamant I was doing it. I was like, I'm definitely doing this race. I was like, I'm doing it. And I was like, right, I'll set my gear out and to get it all like ready. And that the night before, my head was a wee bit, man. I was like on another planet. And I was like, I'm going to do this race. And I just remember thinking, I was like, it was meant to be, I think it was meant to be like -6 or 7, or it was meant to be Baltic anyway. And I was like, if this is the last thing I ever do, then at least I'm going to go out. Like, I was thinking I was going to die at this race. I was like, at least if I go and do this race, at least I die doing something I enjoy doing. I was like, I don't care how cold it is. I don't care what I'm doing. And I remember my dad coming up, and I was like proper like going for it with him. Like, I was like try to get in my car to drive to this race. And he was like, "You're not going." He was like, "There's no chance." And I remember him phoning the ambulance because he just didn't know what to do. He was lost. He was like, "How can you couldn't let me go and do that race in the condition I was in." And I remember the ambulance coming, and they were amazing. They like tried to calm me down, took all like, my vitals, and they were just like asking me. They were like, "But they didn't. How do you explain?" Like, it's such a difficult thing. It must have been so difficult for like my mum and dad and stuff to understand what was going on, because it wasn't a physical thing. It's not something you can just look at and go, like, you break your arm. Oh, it's a broken arm. Your head's broken. You can't be like,
yeah. It makes me think of childhood memories of, you know, the funny guy that you would see walking back from school, or, you know, in the lunch break, or the guy or the woman's house that folk would throw eggs at and all that, because they act different, they talk different, they clearly had voices and all that. And you're right, society's not ready to deal with that level of psychosis. It's not ready to understand. But what's unbelievable and powerful with what you're talking about there is, you've got two things happening here. You've got you living it, and you've got your parents watching it. So you're living in this movie where, you know, it's like a television screen, like a Truman Show, wasn't it? And, you know, and you're the main character in this, where you just can't escape. And then you've got your mum and dad who are watching. They've got front row seats, and it does not make sense to them. They don't know what to do.
It makes sense to them.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. And I remember my dad looking down every avenue possible, like, giving me, like, to try and get me better. Like,
he did.
He'd done everything in his power he could to make sure that I was going to get better.
So what happened? Did you go to the hospital that night, that day?
No, so the ambulance came.
Yep.
My dad had phoned my mum and my stepdad. They came round, and we were all just sitting, and I was like, "Look, listen, I just spoke to the ambulance people," and I was like, paramedics rather, and I was like, "I'm not going to the hospital." I was like, "It's not happening." I was like, "I'm not going there again." I was like, after those 10 days, I was like, "No way, not happening." And then we kind of left, and then this sort of period, I remember we went to see a neurologist in Ross Hall. Went to see him to just get another point of view on things. I was seeing yourself at that time to get chats and stuff.
I think I knew at that point I couldn't help you in your current state. Which is one of I certainly know that's one of the most toughest things I've ever had to face, which was knowing that I could not help you until we were able to get properly,
like medical help,
properly to the bottom of what you needed. So yeah, you're right. There was a lot going on at that point, and a lot was getting exhausted, and your desperate dad was thinking, you know, I think, you know, one of the things was, but I drive you down to, you know, Ayrshire to see me, and I remember you leaving, going, how far has this gone?
Aye. Pretty far.
Yep.
Was the answer.
Yep. So you've seen the consultant. What else at this point?
We were just trying to, like, it's just my day-to-day life at this point was, like, I would sleep, I would wake up, I would try and eat. I remember trying to eat my like breakfast. I would fall back asleep again. I would sit on the sofa in my dressing gown, wouldn't eat, wouldn't shower, wouldn't brush my teeth, wouldn't wash. Just it was literally like a couch potato. That was my. I had no routine. I would try and.
The voice is still there.
Still
at this
there.
point. They're still there.
Still there. So
What do you think of yourself at this point? What's your sense of self-worth at this moment?
Didn't have any. I was just like, I wasn't even that. I wasn't aware of this at the time. It was just like, I just was so engrossed in this story and this, like, the voices that I couldn't think of anything else. Couldn't do anything else. And I remember trying to read books to overstimulate me. Like I would pick out certain words and be like, I would dial in right on that word and dial in on these paragraphs. I couldn't just read a book and it just be about the book. It would be about something else that was going on. Or I remember trying to watch something that was like, well, I was at my dad's at this point, and then I went round to my mum and my stepdad's, and my dad was like, look, listen, he's like really not well on that, because my dad had to go down for a course, and he was like, he's not well at all, but I don't think they'd realised how ill I was, because they hadn't seen me in ages. So they had not seen me in a while, and my dad was like seeing the extent of how unwell I was, and like I would just sit by the fire and I would just sit and I would put my mask on and I would just fall asleep, and I wake up and look at the fire, fall asleep, and then I was just like I would ask my dad like all these like hundreds of questions. I don't know how he didn't get so annoyed, because I was like, thought he was a spy. I thought he was like some sort of Russian spy at some point. And I would like interrogate him and ask him these questions and stuff, and he was just like, but he was trying to do the house as well at the same time, and he was like, so I went round to my mum's, and this was like probably end of January, and I was like mega, like I was like the way I was in the hospital, that happened like again, like this was like pretty severe. I remember watching something, like it was like a Fast and Furious movie with like this bomb in it. I was like, oh no, not again. And I was like watching it, and then I was thinking that now my mum's house and that's going to get bombed. And I remember getting up and I was just frantically like pacing up and down. I was walking in and out of the rooms, looking out the windows to see if anybody's out there, or like if anybody's coming, like all these territories and stuff. I was like looking as if like where the enemy is, where are they?
Paranoia.
Paranoid out my mind.
Yep.
And I remember just losing the plot, and I was like, wait, we're going to die, like shouting, we're going to die, like it's, the world's going to end. Went over my TV, walloped my TV, put a big massive hole in it, put my fist through it, tried to jump out the window, like I was running at the window, like playing like jump into the window, tried to open the window, I was like, try to shut the window, try to get me down, and then I just remember like being like, I was like totally on another world. Like that was, I don't know how, like that must have been, it was horrible enough to live it, but see, to watch that like as my mum, must have been like horrible. Like to see that your son like acting like that and you don't know why, it must have been pretty traumatic. It definitely would have been. And then my dad had came round and got me, and I went back round the road. And just things like,
are they desperately at this point desperately trying to keep you out of hospital, but also knowing that
they didn't know what to do.
You probably need to go.
Yeah, at this point it was like that.
Do you think that was probably the discussion around you at that point, which is he needs to go to hospital?
Yeah, needs medical help
Yep.
Like, there's something has to
And are you still determined? I'm not going.
I was like, no way.
Yep.
I was like adamant. I was like, nah. And even at this point, I was still like, I had such a bad attitude towards mental health.
Yeah.
At that point, I was like, nah. It's like, I was like, even though I was like, I feel like I was like, nah, load of rubbish. I'm fine. Macho man, all that power.
Yep.
I was like, there's nothing wrong with me. I just get on with it. I just deal with it. And then I remember, I think it was like night time, and I was just like so out of it again. But at this point, like, my dad was just like, I think he was just exhausted.
Yeah.
With trying to help me, and he phoned ambulance again, and they came in. I remember I was like, I think I would just get up, and I was like, when they were here, and I was like lie down, and then I would get back up again and walk over and sit somewhere else, and just like it was just like just all over the place really.
Yeah.
And I remember them being like, look, at this point I kind of accepted. I was like, right, I need to do something. My dad was so happy that I decided to walk out to the ambulance, but I thought it was a spaceship. I thought I was going to the moon. I was the only reason I was going, because I was like, well, I was
this
like,
is me. I'm out of here.
I was like, if World War III's happening, we're getting nuked. I was like, I'm checking out. I was like, that's me done. So I thought I was like a wee astronaut. I had my North Face jacket on, and my sliders, and I just waddled out to the car, not the car, the ambulance, and they got in the back of it, and I was in the back of this ambulance, mate. Honestly, like, in another world, I was like, what is going on in here? And they had the tunes on and that at the back of it. I was like, I was like,
what kind of rock is this?
I was like, it's some luxury spaceship. And I remember just getting into the hospital, and I was just like, just remember going in and just being totally out of it again, like at this point. So this was on my 19th birthday. So I was me and A&E for my birthday. And then I was in A&E again, the same room that I was in the last time. And then they didn't, again, like, didn't know what to do. There was a big massive debate between all the doctors and the nurses and stuff about what to do, because they were like, look, he's got previous experience, he's been in a hospital before, like, it's not anything physical. Like, the neurology department were saying, like, if there's nothing we can do. Then there was like another department saying, look, listen, we can't offer anything, we can't do anything, like, it's not showing any physical symptoms, like, nothing's going on. So then they were like, I think I had like another, like, I was like, at this point, me and my dad were like proper, like, because I was like, I'm in the hospital again. I was like, didn't want to be there, so I was pure scrapping with my dad all the time, and I was like arguing with him, and then they basically,
you hitting out of your dad?
I was hitting my dad,
yeah,
which I would never ever do.
Yeah.
That's so out of character for me. So that's not nice. It wasn't nice to be in that situation, but I was then transferred up to Ward 20, so the psychiatric ward.
Yep.
So that was me, and I remember the journey from A&E up to the ward, and I thought, like, I was like, the spaceship didn't make the moon, so I was like, this was like, the SS had to come save me now. So I was like, this was my evacuation. So I was like, right, brilliant. So I was in this chair, getting wheeled up. I'm like in this chair, like, freaking out, like, where am I going? What am I doing? What's happening? And I remember the road, like, it was windy, it was so windy, and the road was all bumpy. And I just remember going along it in this chair, and I was like looking about for this helicopter. I was like, where is it? Where's the SAS coming to save me?
Wow.
Where are they going to be? Like, I thought Aunt Middleton and all that were going to get us.
Yep.
And I remember going into the Ward 20, and they tried to put me in like a cubicle where there was like in a dorm, and there was like 6 other patients. And I was like, where's the chopper? Where's the chopper? I was like, I think I was like, what are you talking about? I was like, did we make it? Did we make it? Did we make it? And they were like, it's obviously no well, like. And then just they calmed me down. There was this nurse, Brandon, and he was like amazing with me. Like, he was so good with me. Like, he calmed me right down, and then I was kind of freaking out a bit more, so they had to put me in like the single room. But then I kicked up a fuss and was like, I don't want to be in here. And then I was like arguing with the staff and like being lashing out at them, and you're so out of control.
Yeah.
That it's not you. It's not who I am. But at that point in time, it was just my actions, and that was just the way it was. But they had to stay me to calm me down and stuff. There was like 4 or 5 of them pinned on me. They were like, "He's a strong boy," and I was like, I know. I remember them telling me that after. I was like, "That's not ideal," but it was just part of the journey.
So is this the point where you're then sectioned?
So I was sectioned.
You were sectioned, so that's you. You're basically losing your liberty.
Yeah.
And you're no longer free to leave. So almost all your power has been taken away.
Yeah. So, again, I couldn't really wrap my head around that. I was like, "What do you mean I'm sectioned?" I tried to walk out the front door, and they were like, "You can't leave." I was like, "What do you mean I can't leave?" It's like, "You're sectioned. You actually can't leave the building."
Yep.
So that was a bit of a...
If anyone's going to mess with your psychosis, that's going to do the trick, isn't it? You're staying here.
You're staying here. So that was me. And then I was in the ward for 3 months. From February to about May. Sometime, I think I got out in about May. So that was, the ward was definitely had its ups and downs, for sure.
And I'm going to share, like, it's probably like to give people a bit of an insight. This is actually quite hard for me to talk about, but I came and saw you during your stay, and I don't, I think you were so deep in your world at that point that my visit really wouldn't have registered too much anyway. Because it's no a slight on you, but I remember like meeting your dad, who's in the room, and he came out to let me come in, and he says, "You go in and go and speak to Harvey and stuff." And I remember sitting with you, and being absolutely blown away at just how damaged you were and how lost you were. You were sitting on the bed. You looked like a kind of like when you see a wee dog and it's in a corner of a room and it's terrified of the world. You were terrified of me. You were terrified. I could see that I could tell that was the first time I had seen that there was clearly voices, because I knew the voices were speaking to you about me. I could tell what was, because you were leaving me and stuff like that. And I was, thankfully I had exposure to mental health, psychosis and schizophrenia and different things, in years gone by. So, but it didn't prepare me for seeing you like that. And I'll never forget leaving you, and how upset your dad was when I was leaving him as well. And I'll never forget sitting in the car praying that you could get better, because you were so lost. And people are hearing this stuff and they're going, "What?" Maybe hearing you talking about it and the war and all this kind of stuff and going, "What?" And it maybe sounds mad to people, but they have no idea what that looks like in terms of looking in. It just looks like absolute trauma, pain, destruction, sadness, everything rolled into one, and it's, things never leave you. That's never ever left me, and I've no idea, like, it's, as you're articulating it and you're recalling it, it's clearly made an imprint on you forever that you're doing now. You're sharing your lessons and your learnings, but like I imagine how that kind of imprint at that point and what that was imprinting on your people who adored you. So you're in there for a few months.
Yeah.
At what point do you, if you fast forward us through that, in terms of what point do you start to make improvements so that you can come back out of hospital?
So basically the way they worked it was, like at first it was only 20 minutes a day to go outside for fresh air. So that was the way I kind of went, was like they slowly, gradually, like introduce you back into normal life.
Yep.
So it was like 20 minutes a day. I would go out for a wee walk, and then I would come back in, and then you get like a 4 hour pass. So I was like getting a 4 hour pass. I would maybe go home for a bit, see my dad and stuff, and then go back in, and then it was like 8 hour, and then like a day, 2 days, 3 days, then like a weekend pass, and then so on and so forth. Until you get like a 2 week one, and then you come back and you have a weekly review every Wednesday. So I had a weekly review with my psychiatrist, so they would monitor me 24/7, like all the time, like make sure that like monitor what I was doing, like who I was talking to, what was happening. And then I kind of just slowly made the improvements, got a bit better. And then I just remember like one day just being like I was obviously at the time I was again adamant I wasn't ill. I was like, yeah, but I'm fine. I was like, and then I was trying to argue the fact that I shouldn't be in here. Like, this isn't good for my mental health, being stuck inside this ward where I can't go outside. I can't go to the gym. I can't see my pals. I can't do things like that. Like, this isn't good for me. And I was trying to argue that case, but I couldn't string a sentence together. I would talk and I'd just stop. Like, I would just like do that. And I would it was in these meetings and stuff, like looking around and trying to talk to these professional people, and I would just like start my words all the time, and like it was so frustrating for me because I knew in my head what I was trying to say, but I just couldn't articulate it. And then I remember kind of slowly getting better, and then at first I was wary of everybody and stuff, and like the nurses, and I wouldn't talk to anybody. But then once I started to get better, I was like, I'd realised how ill I was. And that was exactly where I had to be. I had to be there. I had to be on medication. I had to get better. And then once I kind of came around, I realised that, and I was just like making conversation with people and
so you hit almost that acceptance stage. We talk about that loads. It's fucking beautiful, actually, what you've just described, because I talk about this and I try and get people to understand this. So there's an awareness. So there's, awareness that something's not right. For you, the awareness that I can't keep going taking drugs, I can't keep doing this self-destruction. Then there's a resistance, so I just I'll make more mistakes, and I'll just revert back and go, do you know what, it's not that bad. It's not that bad, or I'm okay, I can cope with this shit. But then somewhere along the line, which yours comes way later, is the acceptance. No, I'm not right. I need to take my medicine, I need to do what needs to be done, and I need to get my fucking life back together. The last part that comes is the action, which I guess comes next. So you finally accepted it. There's no more fighting it. And now I need to take action. So what does action look like at this point?
So action for me, well, I got discharged, and at this point in time, I was like, I hadn't been exercising for like months and months and months. So I'd put on a good bit of weight. I was up about 82, 83 kilos, and I'm quite a wee guy, so I was quite heavy, I was quite pumped. And I had no job, total identity change. Had went from being this athlete and stuff to now having spent 3 months in a psychiatric ward and overweight, not got a job, like totally different. So I was felt as though I had to start from day one. I had to start again. I lost all my fitness, running fitness and that. I was anybody that's been through an injury or they'll know how frustrating that is to start right for the start. And it was a hard journey, but I just showed up.
What about, just as you talk about that, you've lost your identity. You've lost your identity of who you were or who you were trying to be. So what does the new identity take shape like? So do you have to make environmental changes? Do you now that you're at action stage, so you've passed through acceptance, you're now at action, are you now, you're discharged, are you now starting to go, well, there's certain things can't be the same. They won't be the same, and do you start to identify where harsh realities, where I'm going to make changes here?
Yeah, so harsh realities were the environments that I was in, or the people that I was hanging around. You have to change that. I knew after being through all that, I was never going to touch a drug ever again in my life, ever. I knew that was going to happen. It was never going to happen again. So I had to make that change. and change the environment of kind of who I was hanging around with and where I was going mainly. But then again, I say that at the same time, I still, because it was such a big part of my life, music. I still go to raves and I still like do that, but I just go sober, and I know that I'm like strong-willed enough that I'll never touch anything again or never touch a drug again, and I can put myself back in those environments, but with a different mindset around
Different
it.
mindset.
Yeah.
So what was the... Yeah, I mean, changing friends is tough.
Yeah.
Changing some of your friends, well, I don't know how much of that you had to change. It's tough. You know, sometimes you're the bad guy in the story. Sometimes, you know, you can be ridiculed, and you can just have sometimes so many different things can make that a really difficult choice to make. So how have you coped with all of that? How have you coped with making these changes that allows you to no experience that kind of pain again?
I think I coped quite well, to be fair. Like,
Yep.
I was really keen to get back to normal life.
Yep.
When I got discharged, I was thinking, right, it's like I've put on a bit of weight, so I'll get back at the gym. And wasn't able to drive at this point because of my psychosis. So I was walking everywhere, doing lots of walking, and I needed to shift this weight because I was.
So you lost your driving license as well.
Yeah, so that was another thing that happened.
Yep.
So I couldn't drive for a good, it was like, enough 6 months or something like that. So that was a nightmare. That was an absolute nightmare.
Yep.
So not being able to, I had to walk to work every day, walk to the gym every day. So but it was just the commitment I made to lose my weight. But like I said, I was quite keen to get back to normal life. So I was still in the ward applying for jobs, and managed to get an interview or a trial shift in the job that I'm still in currently, and as a chef in Rico's in East Kilbride. So I love my job. It's brilliant. So that gave me like a sense of purpose when I came out. So I was like in the ward, and I seen it on Instagram, and I was messaging, and my boss was so understanding of like the circumstances of what had happened to me, because I just explained it all, like because he'd asked me to come in for some days, and I said I couldn't do those days because I was still in the ward, but I was just so keen to get a job and get back to normal life. So I'm forever grateful for that and thankful about that.
And what happened with your uni stuff? Because you're still at uni, so
I'm still at uni,
did that become under threat?
So what happened was, because I missed all the exams, I had to reset everything. So I had to reset everything. It was either I was going to do first year again, or I was going to reset my exams. So I just reset them in the summer and studied my plan in for them. So that gave me something to do. I was like, right, I'm coming out. I've got my job. I can get back studying. And then I passed all my exams. So I'm just continued on.
So you're studying away. You're getting ready to get your degree back on track. You've picked up a wee job that you've actually started, that you actually apply for while still sectioned in a hospital setting. Which is fucking something in its own. I can't tell how much I love that. You are changing your environment. You're changing some of your circle, which again is massive. How do you repair the trust with the people that love you? What's that been like?
Well, that's a big one, to be fair, because it was something that was obviously broken, and that must have been very difficult for my family to get their heads around that. The thing was, I had a holiday that I'd booked in the June for a festival that was 5 days long in Croatia called Hideout. So there was a big argument whether I should be going or not after all this time in the hospital, and that's going to be an environment where you're surrounded by drugs, you're surrounded by people drinking, you're surrounded by that. You're in that environment again. So I was like, I mean, I just paid all the money, and I was thinking that I trust myself enough now to be in that environment that I wouldn't touch anything. So I just had to kind of convince my mum and my dad and stuff that they have to trust me, and that they need to, if I can go to this and like make sure that I don't take anything, then that was it was almost as though I was gaining their trust back. So I went there, had a great time, one of the best weeks of my life with my pals, drank a little bit, never dabbled, never was tempted to touch a drug ever again. After all that I'd been through, I was like...
Did it feel a real turning point moment?
Yeah, because I knew that if I went there for a whole week, a festival for 5 days, you're literally, everywhere you look, there's people doing drugs. If I can go there, do that, and be fine, have a good time. Had a great time. I made some of the most amazing memories with my pals, and not touch a drug, then I can do it all the time.
Probably made you reframe one of your initial statements, which was you're chasing that euphoric moment in music, and in actual fact, you gave yourself an experience in music sober and clean.
Exactly.
That old Harvey would never have got to see. You would never have got to take in the views, the music, the atmosphere, the people, all these different things in the way that sober and clean and clear head Harvey, you can't compare.
Exactly.
So as we spiral up, you continue your recovery, you start to get your life back on track, you're dramatically changing, you're shifting gears. Then I see the boys shifting the weight, the timber's coming off, and I see that he's back competing.
Aye, so I remember my first race back would have been...
I'm going to interrupt Harvey, and I'm going to say, for those that don't know, listen, I can't get him to be so bare and vulnerable and all that good stuff, and no tell you, he's fucking a hell of an athlete, by the way. He's going to tell you just now, but I've got to tell you, he's absolutely rapid, and he's phenomenal. I've been blessed to be surrounded by a brother of mine through the years that's phenomenal. This boy is unbelievable. Whenever you're around him at races and stuff like that, he's so humble. He's got such a good aura about him when you meet him, which a lot of young ones that are good don't have that. They've got I don't really want to talk to him sort of way. But no, mate, so I'm just pouring into your cup there. So you're back competing. So what does this next little piece look like?
So yeah, I was back competing. My first race back was the Cumbernauld 10K. So I ran that in 36 something, like 36:42 maybe. So that was a good race. I enjoyed that. It was just good to get back competing. I loved it. I was like, I'd missed this so much. That was like my first race in over a year. And then ran the Glasgow Half Marathon, Great Scottish Run. And I just ran the 10K not a few weeks ago, and I remember saying to my boss, he was like, "What time are you going to go for, do you reckon?" And I was like, "I reckon hopefully I'll get sub 80. And he was like, "I think you'll get it. So I ran 119 and came second in the under 20 age category. So that was a good result. I was happy with that. And I've just been competing since then.
Yeah, you've been kicking ass, and I think you won some stuff when you were younger, but I think the form that you're now showing is almost, it's turning into a new you're in a new category. It's like this consistent. People don't realise how hard it is in that running scene, that especially the fast stuff, how competitive that is. I mean, you can go into the OCR stuff and all that, and there's some good guys, and then there's the rest of and the majority, they make up the numbers.
Yeah.
You're in now mixing it with the best of the best in that hard, fast, competitive, elite sort of range, still so young.
Definitely. But I just love competing now. That was like what I used to get from drugs and stuff, that's now what I get from competing. I love it. I love it.
Something I'm interested in, you've had an insight that most human beings don't get to have about the human brain and how delicate the human brain can be if we offset it. Yeah, you've shared a lot about, well, I've got a fair idea why that happened to me. But now that you've had that insight, now that you've had that, you've had that real awakening into how delicate the brain can be and how your well-being can be really turned upside down. How do you think, Harvey, moving forward, how are you going to look after that mental health element? How are you going to look after that brain?
So,
Because does it worry you now that you've had that insight into a world that most people don't have no idea can happen?
yeah, the biggest thing is, I always say, your health is your wealth. Like, if you don't have your health, like, if you're in a hospital bed, lying in a hospital bed, you don't really have much else to worry about except from your health. That's the only thing that you know, financially or anything like that. Is if you don't have your health, you really have like not much at all. So
Robin Sharma talks about that in his book about it's a form of wealth is your health.
yeah, definitely, and even more so your mental health and your mind health and your sanity. Losing that is like something you wouldn't wish upon anybody.
So how do you now make sure that you keep on top of that health, that overall well-being? How do you now look after Harvey?
So I get good sleep every night. Try to aim for 7-8 hours of sleep.
Yeah.
I'll eat clean.
Yeah.
Most of the time, about 80% of the time. Sometimes maybe a wee snack here and there.
Oh, God, I hope so.
Of course. Work out.
Yep.
I run. I walk. I spend time with loved ones.
Yep.
I spend time with my pals and environments that are healthy for me, like going for a run with them or going and grabbing a coffee with them, things like that. What else do I do? And just practice gratitude. See, after experiencing that, it gives me this outlook on life now where every day I wake up, I'm grateful to be here. And I'm grateful like for my sanity and I'm grateful for my health. And that's something that I'm almost thankful for, that I've been through that I now have this appreciation of my life and those around me that I'm so grateful for.
It's power, man. It's real power. You know, they talk about, people throw that word gratitude around a lot, but I don't think they're truly practicing it. What am I really, really grateful for? And whereas you've taken this painful experience and you're now using it to be powered by gratitude. And what you're describing through that there is how you're pouring into that cup.
Mm-hmm.
The young lad out there just now that's or young girl or whatever that's listening to this, that's getting wrecked every weekend. They're emptying their cup. They're not sleeping enough. They're highly sleep deprived. The best free medicine in the world is sleep.
100%.
And you are, kicking about with next to none. They don't eat right, so they're not putting nutrition into their body at all. Nutritious, wholesome foods or whatever. They're just chewing their gums, for a couple of days.
Exactly.
They're no around good people. They're just around BAMs that want to just do this exact same thing.
Mm-hmm.
They're certainly not around loved ones. They're just in people. Everybody's just out for their own ends. And they're no in environments at all that's nurturing and adding value and developing and growing you. So it's all those things that you're now doing. That's such an insight into people that are out there that are wondering why they're so lost. If they were to run through that list, are they getting many of those things, or are they consumed in, just the self-destruction thing? Maybe if they're looking for how do I get out of this, well, let's look at some of the things that you've just touched on. Spending more time in that and less time in this. So, what's the future? What's the future? What do you want?
The future for me is definitely to keep competing, keep pushing myself, and just trying to be the best version of me that I can be every day, and for those around me. And
do you ever remember I did the thing with you? What's your why? Do you remember?
I think so, aye.
And you told me a lot of those things, and I ran it through. You probably were hearing a voice tell him to shut the fuck up at the time. But we did this cool exercise, and you talked a lot about to be the best as could, and to make people proud, and to do this and to do that. And I kept saying, well, what would that give you? And what would that give you? And what would that give you? What did we get to?
Happiness, wasn't it?
That's it, my man. Happiness.
That's it.
And then when I told you, and I saw your face light up, it was during that session, which was a really tough session.
Mm-hmm.
That session, that was the moment where there was just a moment where I just saw this. It's like a coin dropping down in the slot, and you were like, that's all I want. That's all I want. And if you think about everything that you're doing now, all of it makes you happy. All the conversations, all the company you keep, all the things that you do, we're not really that intrinsically different as human beings. You know, there's me, you, and Andy in the background here in the room, you know, and ultimately 3 guys, and what we probably all want at our deep roots is just to be happy. And that takes shape in different things. And I think people that are out there and they feel unhappy right now, it's about looking at, well, how much in the last week or two did I spend doing things that make me happy? And when we did it back at that point, you weren't spending too much time, actually. A lot of things were just really making you unhappy.
Yeah. Definitely.
If you could put out a message, let's go 2 ways with this. First of all, if you could put out a message for a young person listening to this that's feeling this episode, feeling it deeply, what do you think that message would be? What would you give them?
Touching on what we've just been talking about there, I would say you have to do what makes you happy. You have to find something that like keeps you up at night, that you can't stop thinking about, that you love doing, and whatever that is, you pursue it and you go all in on it, and you pursue it as though that's what you want to do. And I think that when you have that purpose and you have that drive and you have that motivation, everything will align if you put enough effort into it.
You'll find that passion and pursue that passion, and
definitely
let it fill you up inside.
Yep, and I think that's where happiness comes from. That's where I get mine anyway.
Mm-hmm. What about a young person that's struggling and doesn't know how to get out what they can't even think of a passion right now because they're just so lost and they just feel like there's no point?
I think for me, the best thing that you can do is to talk. You have to open up, as difficult as it can be, and as much as you might feel as though it's stupid and it's daft, and that was the one thing I wish I'd done sooner, was if I opened up about all the thoughts I was having, and it could have been a lot easier. I might not have had to go to hospital. I might not have had to spend 3 months in a psychiatric ward. I could have avoided all those problems. You just talk to someone that means a lot to you and that's important. That might not even be your mum and dad. You might not want to talk to them about what you're going through. Just one of your mates. They'll if it's a good mate, they'll happily listen. They'll happily sit down. They'll happily listen to what you've got to say, and they'll be able to help you.
I love that. Love that, mate. Talking more could save an awful lot of issues for young people right now, couldn't it?
100%.
So what if anybody's listening to this and they want to find this guy Harvey? I mean, what's he doing? What's he up to? Where's the best place for people to find you and find out no doubt all the things you're going to be winning coming up and stuff like that?
Best place is probably Instagram, to be fair. Harvey_Mitchell Divers. TikTok as well, but I'm not too active on that.
Your TikToks are quite good. My wife is liking your TikToks. We need to have a conversation about that. The TikToks are good, man. It's given you're using that medium, and it's landing different. It's landing different. I've got to tell you, there was a bit of a trolly comment on something you posted. I can't remember what it was. It was like a double-edged dig, and you were just like, you embraced it with love, you know. You just embraced it with love, and I was like, that's kind of you can control, you know, what people are going to make you in this world.
Nah.
And people's narrative is that they're stuck in the old version of you or the version they don't know. So they're going to say what they need to say because of where they are. And I just sort of read it and I went, that's my boy. You know, he's putting out a vibe into the world now, and he's hoping that maybe people can ride on that. He's not getting caught up in how people receive it.
Do not care.
No. Good. Listen, man, this has been amazing. I think it's going to land with so many different people in so many different ways. I imagine half my audience are going to be turning around and sending this link to their kids and their relatives and stuff, and like, you need to listen to this. And then I think we're going to have like a whole range of young people realising that that just because the shit's hit the fan now, this does not need to be where the story ends.
No, definitely not.
You went from hero to zero, and now you're working your way back up again to hero again, and you are writing new chapters, and fucking personally speaking, those chapters are making for an unbelievable read, and I think one day you're going to look back and you're going to be so proud of yourself. I mean, I'm super proud of you. You know, I've told you this. I'm super, super proud of you. I think you're going to be an absolute inspiration to a lot of people. Not that that's what you're aiming for, but I think that's what's going to come out of this. That loads of young people out there, loads of people out there are going to be able to look at you and your story and go, he showed me that I can bounce back. If that boy can bounce back from being sectioned and being gone, and he's back and he's got control of his life again, and he's setting goals and dreams again.
It's possible.
It's possible. It's possible, and that's what this is about. So I appreciate it, man.
It's been a pleasure.
Good.
Loved it.
So that's it for this episode. I hope you love it as much as I've loved having it. And if you do love it, please share it so others can love it too. These episodes are just diverse stories of normal people, you know, of mindset and mental health journeys. And what's really important is we get it out far and wide so loads of other people can enjoy them too. Loads of people can take lessons away from them. So make sure you leave a comment, hit the like button, and give it a share as far and wide as possible.